but we're going to move on into the next game that we're kind of looking at of the three today. And we talked about this quarterback and this team last week, Brandon. And out of the three segments that we usually put on YouTube, I will say Trojan fans showed up. This was our most popular one from last week, so maybe we can get some more Trojan love in here. But you got Max Browne. We talked about him becoming the starter for USC. We know what he's bringing to the table, but now let's dissect it a little bit. Can he really have a coming out party and show up Nick Saban's Crimson Tide?
You know, I think that it could be difficult. He could do it, but I think that there's just going to be some things standing in his way. I think that one of them is an offensive line that you're still looking at with some questions. I think that another could be for the fact that this Alabama defense is still good. I mean, they are still a stout defense.
Well, they're a revolving door, especially on the defensive front.
Yeah, that's one thing that Alabama for me has always been, in the sense, a revolving door, and you use the term perfectly, a revolving door for defense and for running back. There's just no drop-off. There's just no drop-off at all.
Well, and so I mean, this year for both, you've got, we mentioned his name before, Bo Scarborough, going to be the big running back.
Yeah. I think, though, that Max Browne is definitely going to have some options. Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, there's a name of possibly the best wide receiver going into next year's draft. Possibly.
Love him.
I think that this kid is so good, and he's a big target. So I think that Max Browne definitely has some pieces there. You look at the running backs, Ronald Jones, Justin Davis. They really kind of take, I think, the Southern Cal running game to that next level. I think that you also have to never forget about Adoree Jackson. I mean, this is another guy on the opposite side of Smith-Schuster. Max Browne has pieces in place. If his guys can make plays for him, he's going to have to make some plays too. You've got a chance to make some big plays. And I definitely think that big plays will certainly be made in this game, but I don't know if it's enough to overcome what Alabama will be bringing at them.
I'm kind of on the same side of the table. Not literally, because we're on two different sides of the table right now, but for this argument, I'm kind of on the same side where would I love to see the Trojans beat the Crimson Tide? You betcha. I'm not a huge Crimson Tide fan. Brandon's on the other side there. He loves the Crimson Tide. But if you look at last year, the games that USC played, all of them except for the last two, when they played Oregon and Stanford in the Pac-12 title game, 10-point loss to Notre Dame, a 5-point loss to Washington, 10 points to Stanford. They were close. And the one thing I look at last year, I know it was Cody Kessler, but what's one thing that Cody Kessler did not do last year? He didn't turn over the ball. That, to me, is going to be the big thing for this team. And for Max Browne, can't turn over the ball. Because that's going to be the one thing to kind of be the Achilles heel if you let it, is turnovers, because Alabama's that kind of team, and Nick Saban's kind of groomed them into it to where if you give them extra chances, they will make you pay.
Yeah, absolutely they will. And that's one thing, kind of going back to Adoree Jackson, who can play receiver, but also a shutdown cornerback. This guy is going to be going against anyone that Nick Saban throws in at quarterback. And that is kind of the one glaring thing for me right now for Alabama is quarterback, but at the same time, people would say, Brandon, well, look who they put in at quarterback the last couple of years. You have Blake Sims. You have Jake Coker. You know, that's no one spectacular, but yet they won a national championship with Jake Coker at quarterback. Jake Coker did enough. He did just enough, but they had so much outside of him, certainly from Derrick Henry, what we saw last year and what we've seen for the last couple, and then defensively, they've just been so good. I think that that's going to be one of the biggest things for Alabama is who do they play at quarterback and how consistent can they be? And does it have a big positive or negative effect on them? So I think that that's going to be the biggest question mark right now for me coming into this ball game. It's Alabama, the number one team in the nation, going up against USC, ranked number 20, and it's going to be a really good game. I'm looking for fireworks in this game. That is for sure. I think it's going to be good. I think we're going to see some big plays. It's just going to be two teams. The best team in the SEC going up against one of the best teams in the Pac-12, because I'm not ready yet to say that
Can we
USC
say more rising?
is
a rising
the
team?
best team.
Can we say a rising team in the Pac-12 in USC? Because like you said, you don't want to put them at the top yet because we don't know what they're going to fully be under Coach Helton.
I'll be honest and say, I said this, I think, in my preview of USC. I don't currently have them as the highest team up there in even the Pac-12 this year. I don't even know if I have them top 3, and people would say I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but they have a lot of proving to do, I think.
They do.
And could they do it? Certainly. But I've got to wait and see that first before I'm able to say, okay, USC, I've got some faith in you this year.
You know who I am really excited for Alabama's side of the ball on defense is I mentioned that revolving door for the defense, and for me, I'm looking defensive line and a guy, Deshaun Hand. And the reason why is this is a guy that I remember, I want to say it was 2 years ago, was just one of those where it's like, this guy, best strong side defensive end recruit in the country. He was a top 5 recruit for 247 or 247 sports, however you want to say it, .com. And he only played 7 and 8 games in his first 2 years. That freshman year was, or 6 and 8, pardon me. The freshman year was the 6 games where he only had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, saw limited time. Then last year as a sophomore, he went up to 16 tackles, 7 of them solo. Yeah, he bumped up that tackles for loss to 6.5, 3 sacks, but this is the year as a junior expecting to start on that defensive line. He's the guy I'm looking for maybe when we get to the end of the year, we're saying maybe first-round draft pick Deshaun Hand, or a guy where it's like, man, he's a second-rounder if he comes back, first-rounder next year. He's who I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of guys to take a look at in this one. And, I mean, we could go on, we could pinpoint each guy for the rest of the day. But at the end of it, there's got to be someone who comes out as the winner in this one. And, I think that they both have some positives and some negatives on both sides. So that's why I think, not giving anything away yet, is that this is going to be a good game. And it could be closer than what people expect. It could.
Well, I'm going to end with this. I usually shoot you a question before we move on into the next kind of topic on the podcast. I'll ask you this. For the Alabama side, who would you be? I'm putting you into the mindset, into the shoes of a Nick Saban, into the Alabama hat that he wears on the practice field and the little gray vest that he has with the Alabama logo. I'm putting you in those clothes. Who would you rather have as your starting quarterback against USC when the season starts? You've got Cooper Bateman or David Cornwell. Who's your quarterback? I'm
probably going Cooper Bateman. That's just me personally. I feel like I just feel like you can maybe trust him a little bit more, but it's kind of a toss up at this point, really. I mean, I'm not kidding. I think it's more of just a toss up in the air on that point, but you throw one out there and you see how he does week 1, or you see how he does in the first half. And hey, if he hasn't done what you needed him to do, you throw out the other one, because right now you really just don't have that guy who I think is shining. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But as long as you're able to kind of stick with one, Alabama has never shied away from the quarterback by committee. Was it Blake Sims and Coker? Yeah, they switched off 2 years ago, right? Yep, has not shied away from doing that before. So I highly doubt that they would do it again. And I ask you that. Apparently, ourlads.com, who I've said it before, I love them for all their up-to-date depth charts. Right now, they do have Bateman as the starter for that week 1 game, unless Nick Saban comes out and says, no, I'm going to go with David Cornwell as my starting quarterback against USC. But this is where you guys go down below. Let us know what you guys think. What are you thinking for this game? Could it be Max Browne's coming out party